Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to take a closer look at Nvidia. There are reports that Nvidia readies to launch new chips for the Chinese market. So in today's episode, I want to take a closer look at what we know and just share my overall thoughts because I do believe there's a lot to unpack here. So let's take a closer look in today's episode. So first, like always, let's just start off with price action. Nvidia seems to be ripping it, sitting up to $481 right now, up 3% as I am recording the episode. So, like I mentioned, there are reports that Nvidia is expected to release new chips for the Chinese market, but I do believe these chips are meant for more than just the Chinese market. But obviously, that's going to be one of the opportunities.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first, let's just take a closer look at some of the regulation news that have happened in the past few months or so, or in the past year. So on October 17th, about a month ago, Nvidia announced that a new list of their GPUs were banned from being shipped to China and some other countries. That included the A100, the A800, the H100, H800, the L40, L40S, and even an RTX 4090, which is their top of the tier gaming card. So if you happen an NVIDIA follower, you do know that the A100 and the H100, those are NVIDIA's kind of bread and butter, right? The H100 is their current generation GPU meant for data center market, and the previous generation was the A100. Well, these two were actually banned in China about a year ago. So when they were banned in China, NVIDIA decided to kind of meet the regulations and design new chips. They designed the A800 and the H800. But as we saw from the new regulations, those chips are now also part of the restrictions. So NVIDIA had to do something new. So first, what they had to do is they had to sell the A800 and the H800, which wasn't necessarily a big deal, right? The demand for AI graphics cards is so high right now that even though these chips were meant for the Chinese market, because there's such a huge demand of AI and GPU and the compute needed, NVIDIA seems to be selling these now in other markets like the United States, Latin America, Europe, so on and so forth. So that's going to be okay. And I don't believe NVIDIA's lack of Chinese market at the moment is really going to affect them, because there's going to be small enterprises or maybe companies that don't need the true power of the H100 or the true power of the A100, and they're perfectly fine buying the A800. So now let's take a closer look at the new chips that are reportedly being created by Nvidia and should be released within the upcoming weeks. But before we go there, guys, I do want to say thank you for the support. We just hit 28,600 subs. I'm trying to hit 30,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I do have a Semiconductor membership with weekly exclusive videos. Click join to learn more. Special offer at fool.com/Jose. Free newsletter at josenajarro.substack.com, free semiconductor news at semiconductorwatch.com. So there are reports, according to a local news in China, that Nvidia is expected to release the H200, the L20, and the L2, which should all go to the Chinese market because they will meet the regulations that the United States has made. So if we take a closer look at the current kind of solutions that NVIDIA has for the data centers, their top of the tier is the GH200. That is the Grace Hopper super chip, where it's a CPU and a GPU. And here they tell us that, hey, look, that chip is great for deep learning, for data analytics and training, for inference, and for even high performance computing and AI. Now, if you just want a pure GPU, they have the H100, which is very good for things like data analytics training, also for high performance computing and AI. Some of you might be wondering, hey, Jose, why is this one only better for, it's not the best option for deep learning inferencing? And the main reason is due to the memory, right? The Grace Hopper has a lot more memory, so it is the best for that sort of market. Now, if you take a closer look at things like graphics and computes, these are probably like little mini servers and stuff like that. They do have the L40 and the L40S, and they kind of give you that, hey, look, some of these are meant for render farms, for virtual workstations, for virtual desktops, and so on and so forth. So that's the L40 and the L40S. Then they also have a small form factor, which is the L4, and this is pretty much meant for more like in the desktop workstation market. So these are the current ones that Nvidia has. And one thing that's pretty interesting here, though, is obviously we have the Grace Hopper and the H100 here, and these are meant for data centers. But one thing to know is the L40 and the L40S are actually based on a GPU chip called the AD102 GPU. And what's pretty interesting about the AD102 GPU is this is the same GPU architecture that goes into NVIDIA's RTX 4090 GPU line. So as we saw earlier, the RTX 4090 is also banned in China, and that's why it does seem like any chipset that uses the AD102 is banned, and that's why we see the L40 and the L40S. And here are just some quick images. This is NVIDIA's RTX 4090. Here is NVIDIA's L40S. Here is NVIDIA's L40. And here is NVIDIA's L4. But I don't believe the L4 is based on the 102 architecture. So NVIDIA, instead, like I mentioned, they're going to create new chips, the L20, the L2, and I forget what the other one was. And these are actually going to be using NVIDIA's AD104 GPUs. And I took a closer look here. We have some great information here that we found on Tech Power Up. The AD104 is the same chip that goes into the RTX 4070 and the RTX 4080. So we can see this is a weaker chip, and that's why it is okay and doesn't meet the restrictions that kind of the United States government has made. So NVIDIA is going to make these lower chips go into the Chinese market, but I do believe these are also going to be chips that go into other markets as well, like the United States, like Latin America, because NVIDIA, with their previous generation, which was the Ampere, they had the A100, like we have the H100, they had the A30, very similar to, we don't have the A30, but we have the L40, so they had the A40, they had the A10, the A16, and the A2. So it does seem like NVIDIA might kind of follow suit to what it normally does and kind of give us more iterations of those chips, some of them even smaller and smaller, weaker and weaker, meant for different types of workloads. So while there are reports here that mention that, hey, look, this is meant for the kind of Chinese market, I do believe the chips that are going to come out here are going to be used in all types of industries. And here we do have some pictures of NVIDIA's A10, the A2. And I do believe this bodes well for NVIDIA. I do believe there's still such a huge demand for the AI market. We've seen big tech talk about it in the past, how they're going to continue to invest in AI solutions. But there's also the huge growth of just AI engineering, data scientists. So NVIDIA's GPUs, even if they are weaker, they're also going to see stronger market opportunities. So I do believe this bodes well for the industry. But in China, obviously, they're going to be losing that market, and it is going to open up opportunity for competitors. There are some Chinese players that have said that they are coming up with solutions that are better than the restriction chips that NVIDIA is going to be sending out there. For example, there are reports that Huawei starts to encroach on NVIDIA market share in China. And this is not because NVIDIA is has weak products, right? It's because due to regulations here in the United States, and rightfully so, right? I'm not saying the regulations are wrong or right. But because of those regulations, NVIDIA is only able to send kind of inferior products to that part of the world. And that allows the competitors to be like, hey, look, we were always inferior to NVIDIA, but at least now we have kind of an even playing field. So we're going to be able to play some form of catch up. At the end of the day, we're going to have to hear from NVIDIA during their earnings call how this affects them in the long term of things. Hopefully, an analyst comes out with some great questions, because we know in the short term, there's still such a huge demand for AI workloads. In the long term, that's what we're going to really have to find out and see during the earnings. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.